The rain hammered against the cracked pavement like bullets, each drop exploding into 1,000 smaller pieces that soaked through my worn sneakers. I could feel the cold water seeping between my toes, mixing with the blood from the cut on my lip. A parting gift from Marcus before I'd finally found the courage to run. My lungs burned. Every breath tasted like copper and fear. The alley behind Giuseppe's restaurant reeked of rotting vegetables and something else. Something sweet and sickly that made my empty stomach lurch. I pressed myself against the brick wall, feeling the rough texture scrape against my bare arms. My coat was still back at the apartment, along with everything else I owned. All I had were the clothes on my back, my phone with its shattered screen, and the desperate hope that Marcus wouldn't find me. Not this time. Not ever again. The neon sign from the restaurant's back entrance flickered, casting red and green shadows across the puddles. I'd been hiding here for 20 minutes, watching the kitchen staff take their smoke breaks, their laughter floating through the thick air like something from another world. A world where people weren't running for their lives, where a Tuesday night meant the end of a shift, not the end of everything. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I wrapped my arms around myself, but it did nothing to stop the tremors that started deep in my bones and radiated outward. 3 years. 3 years of walking on eggshells, of making myself smaller, quieter, less. 3 years of believing his apologies, his promises that it would never happen again. Until tonight, when I'd seen the look in his eyes, that flat, empty look that meant he'd gone somewhere beyond rage, beyond reason. And I'd known that if I didn't leave right then, I might not get another chance. The sound of tires on wet asphalt made me freeze. A black car, sleek, expensive, completely out of place in this part of the city, glided past the alley entrance. For a moment, I thought it would keep going. Then the brake lights flared red, painting the rain-slicked street the color of blood. The car reversed. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought it might crack them. Marcus. He'd found me. Of course he'd found me. He always found me. I looked around frantically for another exit, but the alley was a dead end, blocked by a chain-link fence too high to climb. The passenger window rolled down with a smooth electric hum that seemed impossibly loud in the rain-muffled night. "Get in." The voice was male, deep, with an edge of command that made it clear this wasn't a request. But it wasn't Marcus's voice. Through the rain and darkness, I could make out a figure in the driver's seat, but the details were lost in shadow. I said, "Get in." Firmer this time. "You're being followed." Ice flooded my veins. I spun around, and there, at the far end of the alley, was Marcus's beat-up Honda, headlights cutting through the rain like searchlights. I could see his silhouette behind the wheel, could imagine the fury twisting his features. The black car's door opened. I didn't think. Thinking was what had kept me trapped for 3 years, weighing consequences, calculating risks, trying to predict which version of Marcus I'd face when he came home. Thinking had nearly gotten me killed tonight. So I ran. 3 steps and I was at the car. The interior smelled like leather and something else. Cedar, maybe, or sandalwood. Rich. Clean. Safe. I threw myself into the passenger seat, and before I could even close the door, the car was moving. We accelerated so smoothly it felt like floating. The door closed on its own. Automatic, I realized dimly. And suddenly I was cocooned in warmth and silence. The rain became a distant whisper against the windows. Even the city seemed muted, as if we'd entered another dimension entirely. I turned to look at the driver, and my breath caught. He was young. Younger than I'd expected from that commanding voice. Late 20s, maybe 30 at most. Dark hair pushed back from his face, strong jaw shadowed with stubble, and eyes that caught the passing streetlights and threw them back like polished obsidian. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Crisp white shirt open at the collar. Beautiful didn't quite cover it. He looked like something carved from marble and brought to life, all sharp angles and controlled power. And he was looking at me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. "Seatbelt," he said, his eyes returning to the road. I fumbled with the belt, my hands still shaking so badly I could barely grip it. After my 3rd attempt, he reached over, his movements precise, economical, and clicked it into place for me. His fingers brushed against my stomach through my thin shirt, and I flinched. He noticed. Of course he noticed. Those dark eyes missed nothing. "Where are we going?" My voice came out as a rasp. When had I last had water? Somewhere safe. He made a turn, the car handling the wet streets like it was gliding on silk. "Someone wants to have a conversation with your friend back there." I glanced at the side mirror. Marcus's Honda was gone, lost somewhere in the maze of streets we'd left behind. Relief made me dizzy. He's not my friend. "No?" The driver agreed, something dangerous flickering across his features. "I don't imagine he is." We drove in silence for several minutes. I watched the familiar streets of my neighborhood give way to cleaner roads, better maintained buildings, streetlights that actually worked. The financial district. I'd only been here a handful of times, always feeling like an imposter among the suits and designer handbags. The driver made a call, pressing a button on the steering wheel, speaking in rapid Italian that I couldn't follow. His voice changed when he spoke his native language, becoming somehow more fluid, more lethal. When he finished, he glanced at me again. "You're bleeding." I touched my lip and my fingers came away red. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing." He reached into the center console and pulled out a small first aid kit. The expensive kind, with actual supplies instead of the pathetic Band-Aids you got at the drugstore. "There's antiseptic wipes. Clean it." It wasn't a suggestion. I took the kit with trembling fingers, pulled out a wipe, and pressed it against my split lip. The sting made my eyes water, but I welcomed it. Pain meant I was alive. Pain meant I'd escaped. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma." The lie came automatically. I'd been using fake names for so long, trying to hide from Marcus's friends, his family, anyone who might tell him where I was. "Emma Collins." His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You're a terrible liar, Emma Collins." My stomach dropped. "I don't know what—" "The car behind us?" He made another smooth turn. "Your ex-boyfriend, I'm assuming, Marcus Delgado, has a record. Assault, battery, violated 2 restraining orders in the past 5 years. Currently wanted for questioning in connection with a convenience store robbery last month." The wipe fell from my numb fingers. "How do you know all that?" "I make it my business to know things." He pulled the car into an underground parking garage, stopping at a gate that opened automatically. "Especially when someone runs into one of my cars." "I didn't run into your—" I stopped, remembering the desperate dash from the alley. Had I? Everything was such a blur of fear and adrenaline. We descended into the garage, level after level, until we were so far underground I'd lost count. The concrete walls were pristine, the lighting bright enough to feel like daylight. Every parking space held a vehicle worth more than my entire life. Ferraris, Bentleys, cars I couldn't even name. He parked in a spot labeled Reserved di Ferretti and killed the engine. The silence was absolute. "Thank you," I managed, "for helping me. I can go now." "You have nowhere to go." It wasn't cruel, just a statement of fact. No coat, no bag, no money. And Marcus Delgado knows what you look like, knows how you think, knows where you'll try to hide. Every word was true, and every truth was a knife. "I'll figure something out," I said, reaching for the door handle. It didn't budge. Child locks. "Let me out." In a moment, he turned to face me fully, and I felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. "First, you're going to tell me your real name." "Your real name," he repeated, his voice dropping to something that made the air feel thicker. "And then you're going to tell me exactly how you ended up in my city, running from a man who should already be in prison." "Your city?" I laughed, but it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. "Who are you, the mayor?" Something like that. He reached into his jacket. I tensed, but he only pulled out his phone. The screen illuminated his face, highlighting the sharp planes and angles. "My people picked up Marcus Delgado 3 blocks from here. He's being interviewed." Horror and relief warred in my chest. "What does that mean?" "It means he won't be bothering you tonight." He tapped something on his phone, then showed me the screen. It was a photo. Marcus, zip-tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse. 2 massive men standing behind him. His face was a mask of rage and fear, blood trickling from his nose. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt sick. "You can't— he needs to go to the police." "The police?" The driver's laugh was soft, almost gentle. "The police who let him violate 2 restraining orders? Who couldn't protect you? No, Piccola. The police are not who handles this. Then who? But I already knew. The expensive car, the casual violence, the way he commanded everything around him like it was his birthright. You're with the mafia. Such an ugly word. He pocketed his phone. I prefer to think of it as family business. My hand found the door handle again, pulling desperately even though I knew it wouldn't open. Let me out. Please, I don't want any part of this. Too late. His hand covered mine. Warm, strong, stopping my frantic pulling without any apparent effort. You got into my car, Bella. You accepted my protection. That makes you my responsibility now. I didn't know. Ignorance doesn't change the facts. He released my hand but didn't move away. Your real name. Now. I looked into those dark eyes and saw something that terrified me more than Marcus ever had. Absolute certainty. This man always got what he wanted. Always. Lily, I whispered. Lily Morrison. There. His smile was approving, warm, and somehow more dangerous than any threat. That wasn't so difficult, was it? The car door unlocked with a soft click. Come, he said, opening his own door and stepping out. You're soaked, you're bleeding, and you look like you haven't eaten in days. We'll get you cleaned up, fed, and then we'll discuss what happens next. I didn't move. Couldn't move. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but where would I go? Marcus was out there somewhere, or he would be once these people were done with him. And I had nothing. No money. No phone that worked. No friends I could call without putting them in danger. The driver appeared at my door, opening it, extending his hand like a gentleman helping a lady from a carriage. I don't bite, Lily Morrison. His voice was silk over steel. Unless you ask very nicely. I took his hand before I could convince myself otherwise. His grip was firm, steady, and impossibly warm. He helped me out of the car, and I realized how tall he was. At least 6 feet, probably more. I barely came up to his shoulder. He kept my hand in his as we walked toward an elevator, his thumb brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that might have been comforting if everything else about this situation wasn't completely insane. What's your name? I asked, as the elevator doors slid open with a whisper. He guided me inside, pressed a button for the top floor, and finally released my hand. Dante, he said, leaning against the elevator wall with casual grace. Dante Ferretti. The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it, like it should mean everything, made my skin prickle. And what do you do, Dante Ferretti? His smile was all teeth. I own this city, Lily Morrison. Every street, every business, every person who thinks they have power here. The elevator began its smooth ascent. And now, whether you meant to or not, you've just become mine. The elevator doors opened onto a penthouse that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Furniture that belonged in magazines. Art that probably cost more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes. But I barely registered any of it. Because standing in the living room, surrounded by 4 men in dark suits with guns visible in shoulder holsters, was Marcus. His eyes locked onto mine, and the fury in them made my blood freeze. There she is, he snarled, lunging forward. The men stopped him instantly, slamming him back against the wall hard enough to rattle the nearby picture frames. But his eyes never left me, burning with a hatred that promised violence, promised pain, promised that this wasn't over. Dante's hand settled on the small of my back, warm through my wet shirt. Lily, he said softly, his breath stirring my hair. Tell me something. This man, has he put his hands on you before tonight? I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Marcus was here. In this beautiful, pristine space, he was here, contaminating it with his rage, his violence, his... Lily. Dante's voice was gentler now, but no less commanding. Look at me. I tore my eyes from Marcus and met Dante's dark gaze. Has he hurt you before? I nodded. Once. Twice, unable to stop. Something shifted in Dante's expression. Something cold and final, like a door closing on a crypt. He turned to Marcus, his hand never leaving my back. You made a mistake tonight, Dante said, his voice carrying easily across the room. You put your hands on something that doesn't belong to you. He paused. Something that belongs to me now. Marcus spat blood, "She's not yours, you rich—" One of the suited men hit him, not hard enough to knock him out, but hard enough to shut him up. "Take him to the warehouse on 5th, Dante ordered, his tone bored now, as if Marcus was nothing more than garbage to be disposed of. "Make sure he understands that if he comes within 100 miles of this city again, we'll find pieces of him scattered across 3 states. "No." The word burst from my throat before I could stop it. "You can't. Murder? Murder?" Dante turned those obsidian eyes on me, and I saw amusement there, dark and rich. "Who said anything about murder? We're simply going to have a very detailed conversation about respect, boundaries, and the consequences of touching what belongs to Dante Ferretti." The men dragged Marcus toward a service elevator. His eyes found mine one last time, and the promise in them was clear. This wasn't over. But then he was gone, and I was alone in this beautiful prison with a man who claimed to own the city, who claimed to own me. Dante's hand moved from my back to my chin, tilting my face up to his. His thumb brushed across my split lip with impossible gentleness. "You're safe now," he murmured. "I promise you, Bella, you are safe." But as I looked into his dark, fathomless eyes, I wondered if I'd just escaped one cage, only to walk willingly into another, this one lined with silk and gold, but a cage nonetheless. And the most terrifying part, I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to leave. Dante led me through the penthouse with his hand still resting on the small of my back, a touch that felt both protective and possessive. My wet sneakers squeaked against the marble floors, leaving dark footprints that I knew would stain. Everything here was too beautiful, too pristine for someone like me. "This way," he said, guiding me down a hallway lined with abstract paintings that probably cost more than most people's houses. We stopped at a door that opened into a bathroom larger than the entire apartment I'd shared with Marcus. White marble everywhere, gold fixtures that gleamed under soft lighting, a shower big enough for 4 people with multiple heads jutting from the walls at different angles. A soaking tub sat beneath a window that overlooked the glittering city below. "There are towels in the cabinet," Dante said, moving to the shower and adjusting the temperature. Steam began to rise almost immediately. "Robes hanging behind the door. Take your time. You're safe here." Safe. That word again. I wanted to believe it so badly it physically hurt. "I don't have any clean clothes," I said, hating how small my voice sounded. "I'll have something brought up." He turned to face me, and the concern in his expression seemed genuine. Almost. "When was the last time you ate?" I tried to remember. Yesterday? The day before? Time had become fluid in those final weeks with Marcus, measured only in the spaces between his rages. "I'm not hungry," I lied. His jaw tightened. "You'll eat anyway. Shower first, then food." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Lock it if it makes you feel better. But know that you're the only one who needs a lock in this house, Lily. Everyone else here follows my orders." The door closed behind him with a soft click. I stood there for a long moment, staring at my reflection in the massive mirror above the sink. The woman looking back was a stranger, hollow-eyed, bruised, her lips swollen and caked with dried blood. My clothes hung on my frame, soaked through and clinging to bones that had become too prominent. When had I gotten so thin? My hands moved on autopilot, stripping off my wet shirt, my jeans that had hung loose even before the rain soaked them. My underwear was gray from too many washes, frayed at the edges. I left everything in a sad pile on the floor and stepped into the shower. The hot water hit my skin like a benediction. I couldn't stop the sob that tore from my throat. Then another. And another. 3 years of holding everything in, of staying quiet, of making myself smaller. It all came pouring out under the scalding spray. I pressed my hands against the marble wall and let myself break. The water washing away tears and blood and the feeling of Marcus's hands on my skin. By the time I finally turned off the water, my fingers were pruned and the bathroom was thick with steam. I wrapped myself in a towel so soft it felt like a cloud, then found the robe Dante had mentioned. White silk with his initials embroidered on the breast pocket in gold thread. DF. It smelled like him. Cedar and sandalwood and something else I couldn't name. I cinched it tight around my waist, rolled up the sleeves that hung past my hands, and unlocked the door. The bedroom beyond was decorated in shades of cream and gold. dominated by a bed large enough to sleep 5. On it lay clothes, women's clothes, still with tags attached, designer jeans that looked like they might actually fit, a cashmere sweater in soft gray, underwear still in packaging, even socks. How had he managed this so quickly? I dressed in a daze, my fingers fumbling with the unfamiliar luxury of the fabrics. Everything fit perfectly, as if measured to my exact dimensions. The thought should have unsettled me. It did unsettle me, but I was too exhausted to care. When I emerged from the bedroom, I followed the sound of voices to a dining room that could have seated 20. Instead, a single place was set at the head of the table: white china, crystal glasses, silver cutlery arranged with military precision. Dante stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking that rapid Italian again. He'd removed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves to reveal forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars that told stories I probably didn't want to know. When he saw me, he ended the call without saying goodbye. "Better," he said, his eyes traveling over me in a way that made heat crawl up my neck. "Sit. Eat." I approached the table cautiously, half expecting this to be some kind of trick. But the food was real. Pasta in a cream sauce that smelled like heaven. Crusty bread still warm from the oven. A salad with vegetables so fresh they practically gleamed. My stomach growled loud enough for him to hear. That almost smile touched his lips again. "Please, Bella. You're making me look like a terrible host." I sat, picked up the fork with shaking hands, took a bite of the pasta. It was the best thing I'd ever tasted. I tried to eat slowly, to maintain some dignity, but I couldn't. I was too hungry, had been hungry for too long. I devoured the pasta, the bread, even the salad that Marcus always said was rabbit food. Dante watched me the entire time, leaning against the window frame with a glass of wine in his hand. "More?" he asked when I'd cleaned my plate. I shook my head, suddenly self-conscious. "I'm good, thank you. Water then." He moved to the table, filled my glass from a crystal pitcher. "You're dehydrated." I drank. The water was cold and pure, nothing like the metallic-tasting tap water from Marcus's apartment. Dante sat down across from me, setting his wine glass aside. In the soft lighting, he looked like something from a Renaissance painting. All shadows and sharp beauty, dangerous and compelling in equal measure. "Tell me about Marcus Delgado," he said. "There's nothing to tell. Lying to me is a bad habit, Lily." His voice remained gentle, but there was steel underneath. "Break it now, before it becomes a problem." I wrapped my hands around the water glass, needing something to hold on to. We were together for 3 years. He was different at first. Sweet, attentive. Then he lost his job, started drinking more, and the sweetness turned into something else. "When did he first hit you?" The question was clinical, detached, but his eyes burned. 6 months in. He apologized afterward, cried, said it would never happen again. I laughed bitterly. It always happened again. "Why didn't you leave?" "I tried, twice. He found me both times." The memory made my hands shake. The second time, he broke my arm. Told the ER I'd fallen down the stairs. They didn't believe him, but they couldn't prove anything, and I was too scared to tell the truth. Dante's fingers tightened around his wine glass. "And tonight?" "Tonight he came home drunk, started yelling about money I'd supposedly hidden from him, money that didn't exist. When I tried to explain, I touched my lip. I grabbed my phone and ran. I didn't think. I just ran. Into my car. I didn't know it was yours. I just needed to get away." He studied me for a long moment, those dark eyes seeing too much. "You have family? Friends who could help?" "My parents died when I was 19. Car accident. I have a sister, but she's in Seattle with her own family. We haven't spoken in over a year. Marcus didn't like her, so he made it impossible for me to keep in touch." "What about work?" "I was a waitress at a diner downtown, but I had to quit last month because Marcus kept showing up, causing scenes. The owner said she couldn't have that kind of drama." I set down the water glass. "So no, I don't have anyone. Which is why I need to leave. I can't drag you into my mess. You're not dragging me anywhere." He leaned back in his chair, radiating calm authority. I chose to involve myself the moment I opened my car door, and what I choose to protect stays protected. Why? The word burst out before I could stop it. You don't know me. I'm nobody. Why would you care what happens to me? Something flickered across his face, too fast for me to identify. Let's just say I have a particular distaste for men who hurt women, especially women who can't fight back. I can fight back, I said, the words automatic. Can you? He tilted his head. Then why are you covered in bruises that are weeks old? Why do you flinch every time someone moves too quickly? Why did you accept clothes from a stranger rather than risk going back out there alone? Each question was a knife finding its mark. That's what I thought, he said softly. You're a survivor, Lily, but surviving isn't the same as fighting. Fighting requires weapons, resources, power. He paused. Things I can give you. At what cost? Smart girl. His approval felt like sunlight. The cost is simple. You stay here, under my protection, until Marcus Delgado is no longer a threat. You don't leave without my permission. You don't contact anyone from your old life. And you follow my rules. So I trade one prison for another. This prison has better food. His tone was light, but his eyes remained serious. And I promise you, Bella, I will never raise my hand to you. That's not how I operate. Then how do you operate? He smiled. A real smile this time, and it transformed his face from beautiful to devastating. That depends entirely on how well you behave. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. Your ex-boyfriend is proving difficult to reason with, he said, standing. I need to handle this personally. Stay here. Don't open the door for anyone except me or my head of security, Carlo. Understood? What are you going to do to him? Nothing permanent. Tonight. He shrugged into his jacket, buttoned it with precise movements. But if he's smart, he'll take my very generous offer to leave the city and never return. And if he's not smart, Dante crossed to where I sat, cupped my chin in his hand, and tilted my face up to his. His thumb traced my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. Then I'll make sure he can't hurt anyone ever again, he murmured. Sleep, Lily. You're safe here. Tomorrow we'll discuss the details of our arrangement. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, chaste, almost brotherly, and then he was gone, leaving me alone in this palace of marble and gold. I should have been terrified, should have been planning my escape. Instead, I found myself touching the spot where his lips had been, my heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of fresh coffee. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then it all came rushing back. Marcus, the rain, Dante's car, this impossible penthouse that felt more like a dream than reality. I'd fallen asleep on the couch in the living room, too afraid to venture into one of the bedrooms uninvited. Someone had covered me with a blanket at some point, soft cashmere that still held warmth. Good morning. I jerked upright, my heart hammering. Dante sat in an armchair across from me, dressed in different clothes than last night. Dark slacks, a white shirt open at the collar, his hair slightly damp as if he'd recently showered. He held a coffee cup, steam rising in lazy spirals. How long have you been sitting there? I asked, pulling the blanket tighter around myself. Long enough. He set down his cup. You talk in your sleep. Heat flooded my cheeks. What did I say? Nothing coherent. Mostly just sounds, whimpers, occasionally crying out. His expression darkened. You were having nightmares. I didn't need him to tell me that. I could still feel the residue of them clinging to my skin, Marcus's hands around my throat, his voice in my ear, the helplessness of being trapped with no escape. There's coffee, Dante said, gesturing to the sideboard where a full service was laid out. And breakfast will be ready soon. I took the liberty of having some of your preferences researched. Researched? Your favorite foods, your clothing size, your schedule from when you were working. He said it so casually, as if having someone investigated overnight was perfectly normal. I like to be thorough. I should have been angry, violated. Instead, I felt something else entirely. a strange flutter in my chest that I refused to examine too closely. Is Marcus... I couldn't finish the question. Alive? Yes. Mostly intact. Dante stood, moved to the windows overlooking the city. He's on a bus to Arizona as we speak, with very clear instructions about what will happen if he returns or attempts to contact you. I've also ensured that several warrants for his arrest were expedited. If he's foolish enough to ignore my warnings, the police will handle him. You can do that. Expedite warrants. He glanced back at me, one eyebrow raised. I can do many things, Lily. You'll learn that quickly enough. The casual display of power should have frightened me. Maybe it did. But there was also relief. Marcus was gone. Truly gone. And I was here, safe and warm and full for the first time in longer than I could remember. What happens now? I asked. Dante turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. Now, he said, we discuss the terms of your stay. Come, let's talk over breakfast. He extended his hand, and after only a moment's hesitation, I took it. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong, and I wondered, not for the first time, what kind of cage I'd traded my freedom for, and why part of me didn't want to escape at all. Breakfast was served on the terrace, a sprawling space wrapped in glass that made me feel like I was floating above the city. The morning air was crisp, cleaned by last night's rain, and the view stretched for miles in every direction. I could see the river snaking through the financial district, the old church spires in the historic quarter, even the distant mountains that ringed the valley. From up here, the world looked beautiful, orderly, safe. A lie, but a pretty one. Dante sat across from me at a table set with white linens and fresh flowers, watching as I picked at the omelet a silent staff member had placed before me. The man who'd served us, older, gray-haired, with the ramrod posture of ex-military, had appeared and disappeared like a ghost, never making eye contact, never speaking. That's Marco, Dante said, following my gaze to where the man had vanished back inside. He's been with my family since I was a child. He doesn't speak much, but he's loyal. They all are. How many people work here? In the penthouse? 5 full-time staff. Marco, the cook, 2 housekeepers, and my personal assistant. In the building overall? He shrugged. More. Security, maintenance, drivers. I own the entire structure. Of course he did. I took a bite of the omelet, perfectly seasoned, filled with vegetables and cheese that melted on my tongue. My stomach had shrunk so much that even this small amount felt like too much, but I forced myself to eat. Dante noticed everything. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me waste food. The terms, I said, setting down my fork. You mentioned terms. Direct. I like that. He leaned back in his chair, coffee cup cradled in one hand. The morning light caught the angles of his face, making him look like something carved from bronze. You'll stay here for a minimum of 2 weeks. During that time, you don't leave the building without my explicit permission and appropriate security. You don't contact anyone from your previous life. Not friends, not former co-workers. Certainly not family until we're certain Marcus has truly left the area. You want me to be a prisoner. I want you to be alive. His voice remained calm, reasonable. Marcus Delgado has a history of violence and obsession. Men like that don't simply give up because they're told to. They wait, they watch, they plan. 2 weeks gives us time to ensure he's actually gone, and to make alternative arrangements. What kind of arrangements? The kind that ensure you can eventually return to a normal life without constantly looking over your shoulder. He set down his cup. I have resources, Lily, connections. I can get you a new identity, new documentation, a job in another city if that's what you want. But it takes time to do it properly. A new identity. A fresh start. The possibility dangled before me like forbidden fruit. And what do you get out of this? I asked. Nobody helps a stranger without wanting something in return. Perhaps I'm just a good Samaritan. You're a lot of things, Dante Ferretti, but a good Samaritan isn't one of them. His laugh was genuine, warming something in his eyes that had been cold before. You're right. I do want something. What? Company. The word hung between us. This penthouse is beautiful, but it's empty. I work too much, sleep too little. and spend most of my time with men who only speak to me because they're afraid or because they want something. He paused, studying me. You're not afraid of me. Not really. And you certainly don't want anything from me except safety. It's refreshing. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong. I was terrified of him, of his casual violence, of the way he commanded the world around him like a king. But the words stuck in my throat because part of what he said was true. The fear I felt around Dante wasn't the same nauseating dread I'd felt with Marcus. It was something else entirely, sharper, cleaner, almost electric. So I'm what, your pet? Your project? I heard the bitterness in my voice and didn't try to hide it. The poor broken girl you get to fix? You're not broken. His voice cut through the air like a blade. Wounded, yes. Traumatized. But not broken. Broken things don't run. They don't fight. They certainly don't look me in the eye and challenge me the way you're doing right now. Heat crept up my neck. I'm not challenging you. Aren't you? He stood, walked around the table until he was beside my chair. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. You've been here less than 12 hours, and you've already lied to me twice, questioned my motives, and accused me of treating you like a prisoner. That sounds like a challenge to me. I tilted my head back to meet his gaze, refusing to be intimidated. If you don't like it, let me leave. No. Simple. Final. I told you. What I protect stays protected. You accepted my help. That makes you mine now, whether you like it or not. I'm not a possession. No, he agreed, his hand coming up to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was tender, almost affectionate, and it made my pulse spike. You're much more valuable than that. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He stepped back, checked the screen, and his expression hardened. I need to handle something, he said, his tone shifting to business. Carlo will be here within the hour to go over security protocols with you. Listen to him, Lily. He knows what he's doing. Where are you going? Work. He shrugged into the suit jacket that had been draped over his chair. I do still run several legitimate businesses, despite what you might think. I never said... You didn't have to. He moved toward the terrace doors, then paused. One more thing. There's a gym on the 15th floor, a library on the 12th, and a pool on the roof. You're free to use any of them. Consider this your home for the next 2 weeks. It's not my home, it's yours. Then I suggest you get comfortable, because you're not leaving. The doors closed behind him, leaving me alone with my half-eaten breakfast and a view of a city I couldn't touch. Carlo arrived exactly 60 minutes later. He was massive, easily 6'5", with shoulders that could barely fit through doorways and hands like dinner plates. His face looked like it had been on the wrong end of several fights, nose crooked, scar tissue around his eyebrows, but his eyes were intelligent, assessing me with the same clinical precision Dante had used. Miss Morrison, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle for such a large man. I'm Carlo Rossi, head of security for Mr. Ferretti. I'll be overseeing your protection during your stay. I don't need protection. Marcus is gone. Marcus Delgado is on a bus to Arizona, yes. But he has friends, associates, people who owe him favors. Carlo moved through the penthouse like he owned it, checking windows, testing locks. And then there's the simple fact that you're living in Dante Ferretti's private residence. That alone makes you a target for anyone looking to gain leverage over him. The thought hadn't occurred to me. People would hurt me to get to Dante? People would do much worse than hurt you. Carlo's expression was grim, which is why you follow my rules. No going near windows without curtains closed. No answering the door unless you've been told to expect someone. No leaving the building under any circumstances without Mr. Ferretti or myself present. This is insane. This is reality. He pulled out a phone. Not his personal one, I noticed, but a burner with a simple flip design. This is for you. It has 3 numbers programmed. Mr. Ferretti, myself, and emergency services. If anything happens, anything at all, you call one of those numbers immediately. I took the phone with numb fingers. What kind of anything? Anything that feels wrong. A noise you can't identify. Someone approaching you in the building. A feeling that you're being watched. He paused. Mr. Ferretti has many enemies, Miss Morrison. Some of them wouldn't hesitate to use you to hurt him. But I'm nobody to him, just some girl he helped. Carlo's expression softened slightly. If you believe that, you haven't been paying attention. Before I could ask what he meant, Marco appeared in the doorway. Mr. Rossi, he said quietly. There's a situation downstairs. Carlo's entire demeanor changed. Relaxed one moment, combat ready the next. What kind of situation? A woman claiming to be Miss Morrison's sister. She's demanding to see her. My heart stopped. Rachel? Rachel's here? Stay back, Carlo ordered as I started toward the door. Marco, get Mr. Ferretti on the phone. Miss Morrison, how long since you've spoken to your sister? Over a year. But Marcus, he must have contacted her, told her something. Panic clawed at my throat. If he dragged her into this, we don't know anything yet. Carlo was already moving, speaking rapidly into his phone. When he finished, he turned to me. Mr. Ferretti is sending someone to verify her identity. Until then, she stays in the lobby. You stay here. She's my sister. She's a potential security risk. His tone brooked no argument. I understand you want to see her, but we do this properly. Mr. Ferretti's rules. I wanted to scream, to push past him and run downstairs, to see Rachel and explain everything and beg for her forgiveness. But Carlo's massive frame blocked the doorway, and something in his expression told me he wouldn't hesitate to restrain me if necessary. So I waited. 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. I paced the living room, wearing a path in the expensive rug, while Carlo stood like a statue by the elevator. Marco had disappeared again, probably to make more calls, to verify more things, to run Rachel through whatever security protocols Dante had in place. When the elevator finally dinged, I lunged forward. Carlo caught me easily, one hand on my shoulder. Let me check first. The doors opened. Rachel stood there, flanked by 2 of Dante's men, looking furious and terrified in equal measure. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her jeans and sweater wrinkled like she'd slept in them. When she saw me, her face crumpled. Lily! She pushed past the guards, past Carlo, and threw her arms around me. Oh my God, Lily, what's happening? Marcus called me last night, said you were in danger, that you'd been kidnapped by some... I wasn't kidnapped, I said, hugging her back so tight my arms ached. She smelled like home, like the vanilla perfume she'd worn since high school. Marcus lied. He's the danger, Rach. He's been... I know. She pulled back, gripping my shoulders. I know, okay? I've known for months that something was wrong. Every time we talked, you sounded more and more hollow. And then you stopped answering my calls altogether. Marcus wouldn't let me. He said you were trying to turn me against him. That son of a... She noticed Carlo then, really noticed him, and her eyes widened. Who are these people? What is this place? It's complicated. Complicated? Lily, there are men with guns downstairs. Actual guns. And Marcus sounded absolutely terrified on the phone, kept babbling about the mafia and people who were going to kill him if he didn't leave town. Please tell me you're not mixed up in something. She's not mixed up in anything, a new voice said. Dante emerged from the elevator, and I watched Rachel's reaction. The way her mouth fell open slightly. The way her grip on my shoulders loosened. He had that effect on people. Who are you? Rachel asked, but her tone had lost some of its edge. Dante Ferretti. I own this building. He moved into the room with that casual grace that made everything look choreographed. Your sister was in danger last night. I helped her. Now I'm ensuring she stays safe until the threat is neutralized. And you just do that? Help random women out of the goodness of your heart? Rachel, I warned, but Dante smiled. I like her. She's protective of you. He turned that smile on Rachel, and I saw her defenses start to crumble. Your sister is under my protection, Miss Morrison. That means she's safe, fed, clothed, and cared for. I promise you, no harm will come to her here. For how long? As long as necessary. Rachel looked between us, and I could see her mind working, putting together pieces. And what does she owe you for this protection? Nothing she's not willing to give. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Lily, Rachel said slowly. Can we talk? Alone. Dante nodded to Carlo, who ushered the other guards out, but Dante himself didn't move. Mr. Ferretti, Rachel said pointedly. "This is my home, Miss Morrison. I don't leave rooms in my own home." But he did move to the windows, giving us the illusion of privacy. Rachel pulled me to the far side of the room, lowering her voice. "Lily, please tell me you understand how insane this is. You don't know this man. You can't trust him. He saved me from Marcus, and put you in a gilded cage instead." She gestured at the penthouse. "Look at this place. Look at him. Men like that don't help people without expecting something in return. He's giving me a new identity, a fresh start." "At what cost?" Rachel's eyes were pleading. "Come home with me, to Seattle. You can stay with Tom and me. We'll figure something out. Marcus knows where you live. Then we'll get a restraining order. We'll go to the police. The police couldn't protect me before. What makes you think they can now?" I took her hands, squeezed them. "I know this looks crazy. I know you're worried, but Dante, he's already done more to keep me safe than anyone else ever has. Just give me 2 weeks. That's all I'm asking. 2 weeks to make sure Marcus is really gone, and then we can figure out what comes next." Rachel studied my face, and I could see the moment she noticed. The clean clothes, the fact that I'd gained back some color in my cheeks, the absence of new bruises. 2 weeks, she finally said. "But I'm calling you every day. And if anything feels wrong, if he so much as looks at you the wrong way, you call me immediately. Promise me." "I promise." She hugged me again, hard enough to bruise. "I love you, Lily. Don't forget that. I love you too." Dante escorted Rachel back to the elevator personally, speaking quietly to her in a tone too low for me to hear. Whatever he said seemed to reassure her, because some of the tension left her shoulders. When the doors closed, taking her away, I felt the loss like a physical ache. "She cares about you," Dante said, returning to my side. "She's my sister. Of course she does. Not everyone is so lucky." Something dark flickered in his expression. "Family isn't always what it should be." Before I could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, and his jaw tightened. "Problem?" I asked. "Always." He pocketed the phone. "Nothing for you to worry about. Get some rest, Lily. You've had a difficult morning." He started to leave, but I caught his arm. The muscle beneath his sleeve was solid, warm. "Thank you," I said, "for letting Rachel see me. You didn't have to do that." His hand covered mine, and the touch sent electricity racing up my arm. "I told you, I'm not your enemy. The sooner you believe that, the easier this will be." He left me standing in the middle of his beautiful prison, my hand still tingling from his touch, wondering what, exactly, I'd agreed to, and why part of me was eager to find out. The days blurred together in a rhythm I hadn't expected. Wake to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, breakfast on the terrace with Dante when he was home, which was less often than I anticipated. Hours spent exploring the building's amenities while Carlo shadowed me like a silent mountain. By the 4th day, I'd stopped flinching every time someone moved too quickly. By the 6th, I'd gained back 5 pounds and could see it in my face, color in my cheeks, the hollows beneath my eyes less pronounced. By the 8th day, I realized I hadn't thought about Marcus in over 24 hours. The library became my sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling shelves lined 3 walls, filled with books in multiple languages: Italian, English, French, even some in what looked like Russian. I'd curl up in the leather armchair by the window and lose myself in other people's stories, other people's problems, anything to avoid thinking about my own. That's where Dante found me on the 9th night. I dozed off reading, the book slipping from my fingers, when his voice pulled me back to consciousness. "You should be in bed." I jerked awake, nearly toppling from the chair. Dante stood in the doorway, tie loosened, jacket slung over one shoulder. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes, tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there this morning. "What time is it?" I asked, rubbing sleep from my eyes. "Almost 2. He moved into the room, set his jacket on the desk. "Carlo said you've been here since dinner." I wasn't tired then. I stretched, feeling my spine pop. "How was your day?" "Long. Complicated." He poured himself a drink from the bar in the corner. Whiskey, neat, the amber liquid catching the lamplight. Someone tried to move product through my territory without permission. We had to remind them why that's a bad idea. The casual way he said it, like discussing traffic violations instead of violence, should have frightened me. Maybe it did. But I'd started to understand that this was his world, governed by rules I couldn't see but that everyone else seemed to know instinctively. Did you hurt them? The question came out softer than I intended. Would it bother you if I had? I don't know. Honest, at least. Part of me thinks yes, but another part... I trailed off, not sure how to finish. Another part understands that sometimes violence is the only language certain people speak. He took a sip of his drink, watching me over the rim. You're learning, Lily. Good. Learning what? How to be comfortable with criminals? His laugh was sharp. How to survive in a world that isn't black and white. There's a difference. He crossed to where I sat, settling into the chair across from mine. Up close, I could see the signs of his long day, a spot of blood on his cuff that he'd missed, scraped knuckles on his right hand. I found myself reaching for that hand before I could think better of it. You're hurt, I said. It's nothing. Let me see. I turned his hand over gently, examining the torn skin across his knuckles. This needs to be cleaned. Lily, stay there. I stood, moved to the bar where I knew Marco kept a first aid kit. When I returned, Dante was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. I knelt beside his chair, took his hand again, and began cleaning the scrapes with antiseptic. He didn't flinch, didn't make a sound, just watched me work with those dark, fathomless eyes. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. I know. I dabbed at the wounds with careful precision. But you took care of me when I needed it. Seems only fair. Fair. He tested the word like it was foreign. That's not a concept I'm used to dealing with. Then maybe it's time you learned. His free hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear in a gesture that was becoming familiar. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more broken, more afraid. His thumb traced my cheekbone, someone easier to control. Disappointed? Intrigued. The word was barely a whisper. The air between us felt charged, electric. I was suddenly very aware of how close we were, me kneeling between his knees, his hand cradling my face, his scent surrounding me like smoke. My heart hammered against my ribs, and not from fear. This was something else entirely. Dante. I breathed, not sure if it was a warning or a plea. His phone buzzed, shattering the moment like glass. He pulled back, checked the screen, and something dark crossed his features. I need to take this. He stood, putting distance between us. Get some sleep, Lily. Real sleep. In a bed. Then he was gone, taking the call in rapid Italian as he disappeared down the hallway. I sat there for a long moment, my hands still trembling, wondering what had just happened and why I felt disappointed that it had stopped. The nightmare came just before dawn. I was back in Marcus's apartment, his hands around my throat, his voice in my ear telling me I was worthless, that I'd never escape, that I belonged to him. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Tried to fight, but my arms wouldn't move. Tried to run, but my legs were lead. Lily, the voice was wrong. Too deep, too commanding to be Marcus. But the hands shaking me felt real, solid, and I lashed out blindly. Lily, wake up. You're safe. It's just a dream. My eyes snapped open. Dante loomed over me, his hands on my shoulders, his expression a mixture of concern and something fiercer. We were in one of the guest bedrooms. I'd finally started sleeping in actual beds around day 5, and weak morning light filtered through the curtains. Dante? My voice came out hoarse, ragged. You were screaming. He released my shoulders but didn't move away. I heard you from my room. I became aware of several things at once, that I was drenched in sweat, that tears were streaming down my face, that I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered, and that Dante was wearing only pajama pants, his chest bare, revealing a landscape of scars and ink I hadn't seen before. I'm sorry, I managed. I didn't mean to wake you. Don't apologize for nightmares. He sat on the edge of the bed, and the mattress dipped under his weight. Do they come often? Every night, sometimes twice. I wiped at my face with shaking hands. Usually I can deal with them, but this one was worse. Not a question. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Dante stood, and for a moment I thought he was leaving. Instead, he moved around the bed, pulled back the covers on the other side, and climbed in. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Staying." He settled against the pillows, one arm extended in clear invitation. "Come here." "Dante, I'm not asking you to think. I'm asking you to trust me." His voice was gentle but firm. "You won't sleep alone after that, and I'm not leaving you to suffer through another nightmare by yourself." Every rational part of my brain screamed at me to refuse, to maintain distance, to remember that this man was dangerous in ways Marcus had never been. But the trembling wouldn't stop, and the phantom feeling of hands around my throat persisted, and suddenly all I wanted was to feel safe. I moved into the circle of his arms. He pulled me against his chest, one hand stroking my hair, the other wrapped around my waist. His heartbeat was steady beneath my ear, strong and reassuring. He was warm, solid, real, an anchor in the storm of my fear. "Sleep," he murmured against my hair. "I've got you. Nothing can hurt you while I'm here, and God help me." I believed him. I woke hours later to find myself still wrapped in Dante's arms, my face pressed against his chest, one of my legs tangled with his. Sunlight streamed through the windows. It had to be nearly noon. I'd slept deeper and longer than I had in months. Dante was already awake, watching me with those dark eyes that saw too much. "Better?" he asked. "Yes." I should have moved away, put distance between us. Instead, I stayed exactly where I was. "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me for basic human decency, Lily." "Maybe not. But I'm going to anyway." His hand moved up my back in slow, soothing circles. "Tell me about him. About what he did to you. Why?" "Because I need to understand what you survived, what you're still surviving." So I told him everything. The slow escalation from verbal abuse to physical violence, the isolation from friends and family, the financial control, how Marcus had convinced me to quit my job, had taken over my bank account, had made me completely dependent on him, the times he'd apologized with tears in his eyes and flowers in his hands, swearing it would never happen again, the times I'd believed him because believing was easier than accepting that I'd wasted 3 years on a monster. Dante listened without interruption, his hand never stopping its gentle movement along my spine. When I finished, my face was wet with tears I hadn't realized I was shedding. "He stole 3 years of your life," Dante said, his voice cold as winter. 3 years you'll never get back." "I know." "And you blame yourself for staying." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. How could I not? I'm smart, educated. I knew what he was doing was wrong. But I stayed anyway, because he convinced you that you had nowhere else to go, that you were worthless without him. That's what abusers do, Lily. They make you believe the cage is safety. His arms tightened around me, but you got out. In the end, when it mattered most, you found the strength to run. That's not weakness. That's survival. It doesn't feel like strength. It will. Eventually. He tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet his eyes. And until then, you have me. For whatever that's worth. Why? The question had been building for days. Why do you care? You could have just driven past that alley, could have let Marcus take me. Instead, you brought me into your home, gave me clothes and food and safety. Why? Something flickered in his expression. Pain, maybe. Or an old wound reopening. When I was 16, my mother tried to leave my father. He was not a good man. Violent, cruel, especially when he drank. She'd endured it for years, but when he turned his attention to my younger sister, she finally found the courage to take us and run. He paused, and I waited, hardly breathing. We made it as far as a motel 2 towns over. My father found us 3 days later. His voice remained steady, but his eyes had gone somewhere else entirely. He beat her so badly she spent 2 weeks in the hospital, broke her jaw, fractured her skull, 3 ribs. The doctors said she was lucky to survive. Dante, I whispered, my hand finding his face. She never tried to leave again, spent the next 10 years in that house, getting smaller and quieter until she was barely a ghost. She died when I was 26. Officially from pneumonia, but really from a broken spirit and a lifetime of trauma. He focused on me again, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. So when I saw you in that alley, soaked and bleeding and running for your life, I saw my mother. And I promised myself I would never let another woman suffer like that, not if I could stop it. I'm sorry, I said. Because what else could I say? I'm so sorry that happened to your family. Don't be sorry. Be free. His thumb brushed across my lips, careful of the healing cut. That's all I want for you, Lily. Freedom to choose your own path, build your own life. Become whoever you want to be without someone crushing you under their heel. And if I choose to stay here, with you? The question surprised us both. Dante's eyes darkened. Is that what you're choosing? I don't know. Honest, even if it terrified me. 2 weeks ago, I couldn't imagine anything beyond surviving the next day. Now I'm lying in bed with a man who terrifies and fascinates me in equal measure, feeling safer than I have in years. I don't know what I'm choosing because I don't know what my options are. Your options are endless, Bella. He shifted, rolling us so he was above me, his weight supported on his forearms. You can leave whenever you want. I'll set you up with new documents, money, a job anywhere in the country. Or you can stay. Live here, let me protect you, let me... He trailed off, seeming to struggle for words. Let you what? Show you what it's like to be cherished instead of controlled, worshipped instead of broken, chosen instead of trapped. His hand cupped my face with devastating gentleness. I want you, Lily Morrison. I have since the moment you looked at me in that car with fear and fury in your eyes, refusing to be diminished even in your darkest moment. But I won't keep you if you want to go. That's the difference between men like me and men like Marcus. I may be a monster, but I'm a monster with rules. What if I want to stay? The words came out barely above a whisper. Not forever, maybe, but for now. Until I figure out who I am without someone telling me. Then you stay. He lowered his head until our foreheads touched. And I promise you, Bella, you'll want for nothing. Protection, safety, comfort. Whatever you need, it's yours. What about freedom? Especially freedom, the kind that matters anyway. His lips brushed my temple. But I'm selfish enough to hope that once you're ready to fly, you'll choose to come back. I should have been afraid. Should have recognized the possessiveness in his words, the danger in the way his arms tightened around me. But all I felt was warm, safe, and seen in a way I'd never experienced before. Maybe that made me foolish. Maybe it made me brave. Or maybe it just made me human, reaching for connection in the aftermath of cruelty. Seeking light after years in the dark. Dante? I whispered. Yes? Stay with me today. Please. Just for today. Can we pretend the world doesn't exist outside this room? His answer was to pull me closer, to wrap me in arms that felt like safety and danger intertwined. For you, Bella, he murmured against my hair. I'd stop the world from spinning if you asked. And in that moment, wrapped in the arms of a beautiful monster, who saw my worth when I'd forgotten it myself, I believed him. The next 4 days passed in a haze of unexpected domesticity. Dante rearranged his schedule. Something Carlo muttered had never happened in the 5 years he'd worked for him. Meetings were pushed, calls were delegated, and suddenly the man who ran an empire from the shadows was having breakfast with me every morning, teaching me to make proper Italian espresso, arguing with me about books in the library. We didn't talk about what was happening between us, didn't label it, or examine it too closely. It existed in a space outside normal rules, not quite romance, not quite protection, something unnamed that grew stronger with each passing hour. On the 12th night, everything changed. I was in the library again. It had become our place, where the world felt smaller and safer, when Dante's phone rang. Not the usual buzz of texts or work calls, but an actual ring that made his expression go cold and hard. "Excuse me," he said, stepping into the hallway. But I could hear him anyway. The walls were thick, but his voice carried when it sharpened with anger. "I thought we had an understanding." "No, that's unacceptable. Tell Salvatore if he wants war, I'll give him war." Ice flooded my veins. War. He was talking about war. When he returned 10 minutes later, the mask was back in place. Calm, controlled, the perfect gentleman. But I'd seen behind it now. "Problem?" I asked. "Nothing I can't handle." He poured himself a whiskey, downed it in one swallow. "There's a business dispute. It'll be resolved by morning. Dante." I set down my book, stood to face him. "I'm not a child. Don't lie to me." His jaw tightened. "You don't want to know the details, Lily." "Maybe not, but I want the truth." I crossed to him, took the empty glass from his hand. "What's happening?" He studied me for a long moment, then sighed. "One of my rivals thinks I've become weak, distracted. He's making moves to take over territory that's been mine for years. Because of me. Because he's an idiot who mistakes patience for weakness." Dante's hand cupped my face. "This has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me. You said yourself, people see me as leverage, a way to hurt you. Which is why you're staying here, where you're safe." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "I won't let anyone touch you, Lily. I promise." What if promising isn't enough? The question hung between us, heavy with implications neither of us wanted to voice. Dante pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me like he could shield me from the world through sheer force of will. "Then I'll burn down the entire city to keep you safe, starting with anyone foolish enough to threaten what's mine." What's mine? The possessiveness should have frightened me. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in my belly. "I'm not a possession," I murmured against his chest, but there was no conviction in my words. "Aren't you?" His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head back. "You sleep in my bed, wear clothes I bought you, eat food I provide. You've become essential to my days, Bella. So yes, you're mine. Just as I'm becoming yours, Dante. Tell me I'm wrong." His face was inches from mine, his breath warm against my lips. "Tell me you don't feel this thing between us. Tell me you don't think about me the way I think about you, constantly, obsessively, to the point of distraction." I couldn't, because it was true, all of it. "This is insane," I whispered. "We barely know each other. I know you survived 3 years of hell and came out fighting. I know you're stronger than you think, braver than you believe, and more beautiful than you could possibly understand." His forehead pressed against mine. "I know that when you smile, really smile, not the polite mask you wear for others. It feels like the sun breaking through storm clouds, and I know that if anything happened to you, I would tear this world apart with my bare hands." "You're terrifying," I breathed. "I know." His lips brushed my temple. "Does it matter?" "It should. But it doesn't." "No," I admitted, my hands fisting in his shirt. "It doesn't." He kissed me then, not gentle, not tentative, but with all the controlled violence of a man who'd been holding himself back for too long. His mouth claimed mine with a hunger that stole my breath, his hands gripping my waist hard enough to bruise. And I kissed him back just as fiercely, pouring 3 years of pain and fear and loneliness into the contact, letting him consume the broken parts of me and forge them into something new. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were black with desire. "Lily," he rasped. "If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. You need to understand that. I'm not a good man. I'm selfish and possessive, and I don't share what's mine. If you give yourself to me, I'll never let you go. Promises, promises," I said, and pulled him down for another kiss. He lifted me easily, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me from the library, not to my guest room, but to his bedroom, a space I'd never entered, vast and dark with windows overlooking the sleeping city. He laid me on sheets that smelled like him, his body covering mine, and for the first time in years, I felt desired instead of used, wanted instead of needed, chosen instead of trapped. "Tell me if I hurt you," he murmured against my neck, his hands already working at my clothes. "Tell me if anything feels wrong. Don't stop," I whispered. "Please, Dante, don't stop." So he didn't. I woke to gray dawn light and the feel of Dante's fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder. "Good morning," he said softly when he noticed my eyes open. "Hi." I stretched, feeling pleasantly sore in places I'd forgotten could feel pleasure. "What time is it?" "Early, 6 maybe." He pressed a kiss to my shoulder. "I need to handle the situation with Salvatore this morning, but I wanted to see you before I left." Reality crashed back, the business dispute, The threat of war. I sat up, pulling the sheet with me. Be careful. Always. But something in his expression told me this was more serious than he was letting on. Dante. I caught his hand. Promise me you'll come back. I promise. He raised my hand to his lips. I have too much to come back to now. He dressed in silence. Dark suit, crisp shirt, the armor of his world. I watched from the bed, memorizing the way he moved, the controlled power in every gesture. At the door, he paused. Stay inside today. Carlo will be here, and Marco. Don't leave the penthouse for any reason. I won't. Good girl. The approval in his voice sent warmth through me. I'll be back by dinner. We'll celebrate your freedom. My freedom? 2 weeks, remember? As of today, you're free to leave whenever you want. New identity, new life. Everything I promised. He crossed back to the bed, cupped my face in his hands, but I'm hoping you'll choose to stay. Dante, don't answer now. Think about it. Decide what you really want. He kissed me, soft and lingering. I'll accept whatever you choose, but know that if you stay with me. Not as a guest or someone under protection. As mine. Then he was gone, leaving me alone with choices I'd never imagined having. The call came at 2 p.m. I was reading in the library, trying to distract myself from worrying about Dante, when Carlo appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Miss Morrison, we need to move you. Now. My book fell from nerveless fingers. What happened? Salvatore's men hit one of Mr. Ferretti's warehouses. It's escalating faster than anticipated. He was already moving, pulling me to my feet. We have a safe house across town. You'll stay there until this is resolved. Where's Dante? Handling it. Carlo's hand on my elbow was gentle but firm, guiding me toward the elevator. He gave explicit orders. Your safety comes first. We made it to the parking garage before everything went to hell. The elevator doors opened, and instead of Carlo's car waiting, there were 5 men in dark suits, not Dante's men. I knew that instantly from the way Carlo went rigid, his hand moving toward the gun at his hip. Don't, one of them said, raising his own weapon. We just want the girl. Over my dead body, Carlo growled. That can be arranged. Everything happened so fast. Carlo shoved me behind him, drawing his gun. Shots rang out, impossibly loud in the concrete space. I screamed, pressed against the wall as bullets sparked off metal and shattered concrete. Carlo went down. I ran. Not toward the elevator. That way was blocked. Instead, I sprinted deeper into the garage, between rows of expensive cars, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might explode. Behind me, I heard shouting, running footsteps. A hand caught my arm, yanking me to a stop. I spun, striking out blindly, but the man was too strong. He twisted my arm behind my back, his other hand clamping over my mouth. Got her! He shouted. No, this couldn't be happening. Not when I'd finally found something worth holding on to. I bit down hard on his palm. He cursed, his grip loosening just enough for me to break free. I ran again, but there was nowhere to go. The garage was a maze with no exit except back through the men who wanted to take me. More gunfire, shouting in Italian, the screech of tires, then cutting through the chaos like a blade. Lily. Dante's voice. I turned, and there he was, emerging from the stairwell like an avenging angel, his suit jacket gone, blood on his shirt, gun in his hand and murder in his eyes. Our gazes locked across the distance. One of Salvatore's men grabbed me from behind, yanking me against his chest, cold metal pressing against my temple. Don't move, Ferretti, he shouted, or I paint the walls with her brain. Dante froze, his gun trained on my captor, his expression absolutely lethal. Let her go, Gianni. His voice was deceptively calm. This is between Salvatore and me. She has nothing to do with it. She has everything to do with it. Gianni's arm tightened around my throat. Word is you've gone soft for this little putana. Salvatore wants to test that theory. Tell Salvatore he's made a fatal mistake. Dante took a step forward, his gun never wavering, because touching her just signed his death warrant. Big words from a man whose girlfriend is about to... The shot came from somewhere to my left. One of Dante's men, arriving from another entrance. Gianni's grip loosened as he collapsed, and I stumbled forward. Dante caught me before I hit the ground, pulling me against his chest with arms that trembled slightly. "I've got you," he murmured into my hair. "You're safe. I've got you." More of his men poured into the garage, securing the area, checking on Carlo, who was alive, I saw with relief, sitting up with a hand pressed to his shoulder. The danger was past, but I couldn't stop shaking. "Lily." Dante pulled back just enough to see my face, his hands framing it with desperate gentleness. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" I'm fine. The words dissolved into sobs I couldn't control. He held me through it, one hand in my hair, the other rubbing soothing circles on my back, murmuring reassurances in Italian that I didn't understand, but felt in my bones. When I could finally breathe again, he pulled back. "This ends tonight," he said, his voice hard as steel. "Salvatore crossed a line he can't uncross. By morning, he won't be a problem anymore." "Dante." "No." His eyes burned into mine. "He tried to take you, to hurt you to get to me. That's not something I forgive, ever." I saw it then, the monster beneath the gentleman's mask, the violence he'd been holding back, the darkness that made men fear his name. And I should have been terrified, but all I felt was safe. "Take me with you," I said. His expression shifted to surprise. "What?" "Whatever you're going to do, take me with you. I want to see it. I want to understand your world." I gripped his blood-stained shirt. "No more protection, no more sheltering. If I'm going to be yours, I need to know all of it. Lily, what I'm about to do will be violent, brutal, possibly fatal for Salvatore." I met his gaze without flinching. "I know, and I'm asking anyway." He studied me for a long moment, something like pride flickering in his expression. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." "Then you'll see exactly what it means to be Dante Ferretti's woman." He kissed me, hard and possessive. "And when it's over, you'll make your choice. Stay or go, but you'll make it knowing exactly who and what I am." The warehouse on the dock smelled like salt water and rust and fear. Salvatore hung from chains in the center of the room, his expensive suit torn and bloodied, his face already showing signs of Dante's particular brand of persuasion. Around him stood a dozen of Dante's men, silent and watchful. I stood beside Dante, his hand wrapped around mine, and watched as he conducted business. "You tried to take something that belongs to me," Dante said, his voice carrying easily through the cavernous space. "Explain why I shouldn't kill you where you hang." "She's just a woman," Salvatore spat blood. "Not worth starting a war over. That's where you're wrong." Dante's grip on my hand tightened. "She's worth burning down this entire city, worth painting the streets red, worth everything I've built and more." He stepped closer to Salvatore. "You thought I was weak because I found something worth protecting beyond money and power, but that's what makes me dangerous, Sal. Because now I have something to lose, and men with something to lose fight harder, kill faster, and show absolutely no mercy." He turned to his men. "Spread the word. Salvatore's territories are mine as of tonight. Anyone who objects can join him." "You can't," Salvatore started. Dante's fist connected with his jaw, snapping his head back. "I just did." What followed was brutal, efficient, and over quickly. I watched it all. Dante's cold fury, his absolute control even in violence, the way his men obeyed without question. This was his world, dark and dangerous and governed by rules written in blood, and I wasn't afraid. When it was done, when Salvatore was a broken thing promising to leave the city and never return, Dante turned to me. "Now you've seen it all," he said quietly. The monster without his mask. I stepped into his arms, ignoring the blood on his clothes, the violence still humming in the air. "I choose to stay," I said. His eyes widened. "Lily, I choose you. This life, this world, all of it." I gripped his face, forcing him to see the certainty in my expression. "You showed me I was worth protecting, worth cherishing, worth more than the broken thing Marcus tried to make me. You gave me back myself, so yes, I'm staying. Not because I have nowhere else to go, but because this is where I want to be. You'll be in danger, always. Being with me makes you a target, then teach me to shoot, to fight, to be dangerous too. I smiled. You wanted to give me freedom, Dante. Well, this is my choice. Freely made. I choose you. He kissed me then, in a warehouse that smelled like violence and vengeance, with his men watching and his enemies defeated. He kissed me like I was salvation and damnation wrapped in one, like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his entire life. When we finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead to mine. Then you're mine, he murmured. For as long as you'll have me. Forever sounds good, I whispered back. His smile was brilliant, transforming his face from beautiful to breathtaking. Forever it is, Bella Mia. 6 months later, I stood on the terrace of Dante's penthouse. Our penthouse now, watching the sun set over the city that had become my home. The ring on my finger caught the light, diamonds glittering like captured stars. Behind me, I heard the elevator doors open, followed by Dante's familiar footsteps. How was your day? I asked, as his arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me back against his chest. Long, boring. Better now. He pressed a kiss to my neck. How was yours? Productive. I finalized the paperwork for the women's shelter. The project Dante had funded, the one that would provide safe housing and resources for women escaping domestic violence. My purpose. My way of turning my pain into something meaningful. We open next month. I'm proud of you. His hand splayed across my stomach, and I covered it with mine. Rachel called. She wants to visit next weekend. I'll have Carlo arrange security. He turned me in his arms, his dark eyes warm. She still doesn't trust me. She's protective. She'll come around. I reached up to touch his face. Eventually, she'll see what I see. A man who saved me in every way a person can be saved. I didn't save you, Bella. You saved yourself. His thumb traced my lower lip. I just gave you the space to heal. Semantics. I smiled. Either way, I'm here. Happy. Free. With you. With me, he echoed. And the satisfaction in his voice made me laugh. Had I traded one cage for another? Perhaps. But this cage had no locks, no chains, no rules designed to break me. This was a choice I made every morning when I woke in Dante's arms. To stay, to love, to build a life from the ashes of everything I'd lost. Marcus was gone, truly gone, serving time for the robbery and other charges Dante's influence had ensured would stick. The nightmares came less frequently now. And when they did, Dante was there to chase them away. I'd found my sister again, mending bridges I'd thought were burned forever. I'd found purpose in helping other women escape the hells I'd survived. I'd found strength I didn't know I possessed. But most importantly, I'd found myself, not the broken girl Marcus had tried to create, and not the frightened woman who'd run into a stranger's car on a rain-soaked night. I was Lily Ferretti now, wife to a monster, lover to a man who would burn the world to keep me safe, partner to someone who saw my worth even when I'd forgotten it. And I was free. Finally, beautifully, terrifyingly free. Dante kissed me as the sun painted the sky in shades of fire, and I kissed him back with everything I had, gratitude and desire and love and choice, all wrapped together in a moment that felt like forever. I love you, I whispered against his lips, and I love you, Bella Mia. His arms tightened around me, more than power, more than this city, more than my own life. You're everything. The city stretched out below us, full of shadows and secrets, danger and beauty in equal measure. Dante's world, dark and complex and ruthless. Our world now, and I wouldn't change a single thing.